Hey guys, welcome to the In the Game Room podcast. This is episode number 100. We've hit the century mark. I mentioned in a podcast a couple of podcasts ago, or maybe the last one, that I wanted to do something special for the 100th episode. Well, I've had a little bit of change of plans. You see, when I started this podcast almost 2 years ago, on the second or third episode, I had my buddy Chris come on with me, and we had a little bullshit session, questions, answers, things like that. It was a really cool episode, and I want to do that again with him for the special sort of centennial. So we might do, I think that was episode 3, so what I might do is the sort of special episode will be number 103, so it'll be a 100 episode anniversary of the first time we did this podcast together. Anyways, that'll probably happen in the next week. I'm planning on seeing him next week for a quick game and just a hangout session, so we'll probably do a podcast then. So for now, I'm going to do a little product announcement, and then we're going to get into talking about another topic. So enjoy! Hi guys, welcome to the In the Game Room podcast. Tonight I want to talk to you about a couple of new products that are coming out pretty soon from my company, and then I want to do I wanted to do a review of a product that I just bought from another company, but that's actually not going to be a review, it's going to be something else, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Let me clear off a little space here and show you guys this brand new building here. This is a 28mm Tudor style house, a multi-level house. It's got 2 floors and an attic area, and the way this kit is designed is so that everything comes apart so you can actually play inside the building. This is an MDF kit. This is a kit that was designed by a fella in the United Kingdom. I'm gonna have to put it in the notes who he is, because I do want to give him credit. I did not design this kit. Like I said, it was designed by another man, and I bought the files from him and had to make some modifications and some adjustments for the material thicknesses that we use here in America, and some other allowances for laser cutting and things like that. But the basic design, the look and the feel of this was designed by somebody else, and I'm very, very happy with it. And this is available on the website now. This is kit number 28MMDF620. And like I said, it comes in 3 different pieces. It's a very complex kit in the level of detail and parts and things like that, but it goes together very easily. It's very well designed. It's very simple to assemble, and there is a PDF file that goes with it that shows step by step how to assemble the model. Now this one I put together real quick just as a test to make sure everything fit perfectly after I did all my design work on it. So I didn't paint anything. And the way that these raised timber buildings, these split timber buildings work, when you're building them, you should paint these pieces separately, paint the model itself, and then apply these. It makes it so much easier. There's no masking, there's no messing around. So I couldn't do that to this one because I built this in a big hurry just to make sure, as a test, to make sure everything fit perfectly. So I'm building a second one now, and I'm going to paint everything separately. Here's the upper floor here. This is the ground floor, and then I've got the roof pieces over here. So I'm working on that now, and once that's done and all painted, I'll have some pictures on the website that show what it looks like when it's totally finished. Right now there's just pictures of this one on the site, which I think gives you a pretty good idea what it looks like. But I think once it's painted, it's going to look a whole lot nicer. Along the same lines in that series, there's a second smaller, just a very basic 1-story house that's also coming. This has a removable roof, so you can play inside. Nothing on this is glued together yet. That's why there's a rubber band holding it all together at the moment. But the same thing, I'm going to be painting the raised timber parts separately and then applying them. So that's why it's not all glued together yet. So this is the second one in that series, which is not online yet, but may be by the time you see this video. And there's going to be several more in this series, all the same style and flavor and the same scale. Before anybody asks, they may be scaled down later to other scales. We're starting at 28, and then we'll go down from there. Probably next I'll do 15mm, which would be great for like Team Yankee and Flames of War and other 15mm games. I may even consider taking these designs all the way down to 6mm and then doing resin castings. We'll have to see about that, because that would be a major undertaking, because I probably want to redesign them completely from scratch in a 3D CAD program, and then 3D print the masters for the mold making. Speaking of 3D printing, that takes me to our next topic. I was at Adepticon, as you know, about a week ago. Yeah, I was there a week ago. And one of the things I saw there, I'll post a picture of it somewhere here, I saw this 28mm submarine model, a U-boat, and I really thought it was cool. I just like big models, and I like ship models. I've done quite a few ship models myself in 6mm scale. And most ships are not really a good idea in 28mm because they're just so huge, but a submarine that's about this big, that seemed kind of reasonable. So anyways, I saw the model there, I liked it. I ordered it before I even left Chicago. I ordered it online from a company. Now, I was really hoping that this model would come, I would get it, open it up and do a review and just blow you guys away with how cool it was. The model is a complete piece of garbage. Sorry to say, this is probably the worst resin cast model I've ever seen from any company. I'm not going to mention the company's name. I don't want to sit here and trash them. They may be a great company. Everything they make may be awesome except this one kit. But honestly, if I'm going to have any credibility with you guys in reviewing anything, I have to tell you that this is absolutely the worst kit I've ever seen. To qualify that a little bit, the actual resin casting isn't bad. It's not full of bubbles, there's no overfills, there's no parts that have been sanded down with rough coarse sandpaper or anything like that. The actual work that was put into the guy pouring the resin is not bad at all. The problem with this model is the master. Now, some of you may not be familiar with, in resin casting, there's basically three pieces to the puzzle. There's the master, the mold, and the part. The master is what you start with, the original, the thing that you're going to make a mold of. And that's the thing that you put all your work into, making it perfect, because every single part you make from that is going to be representative of what that master looked like. So there's the master, and from the master you make a mold, and then from the mold you make the actual parts that you reproduce in mass and sell. So the problem with this submarine model, this U-boat model, is the master. This is why I want to talk to you about 3D printing a little bit and the pitfalls of it. There are a lot of 3D printers available in the market today, and some of them are very inexpensive, and a lot of people are buying them and using them to make miniatures. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. You just have to understand, when you buy a 3D printer, whether you pay $200 or $1,000, it's probably going to be what's called an FDM printer. Fused Deposition Modeling is what FDM stands for. And what that is, that's the ones, you've seen them all. They're the ones that have the plastic wire that goes into a heated extruder and it spits out the plastic melted. I call it a spaghetti shooter because it's shooting out this extruded plastic, and it goes around and it does the pattern, and then the table moves and it does it again and it does it again and it does it again, and eventually you end up with a model. They're great little pieces of equipment, and you can do some really creative things with them. They're not production machines. They're not going to make masters that are proper for production parts without a whole lot of work after the 3D printing, the finishing, the getting the master ready for molding. That's where this company fell down. This company printed the parts on a 3D printer, probably a consumer grade, very inexpensive FDM printer that prints with the plastic wire, and they got all their parts done. And from where you guys are sitting right there, it's probably going to look kind of impressive. I'm going to show you some close-up photos. These parts came off the 3D printer, and they just put them in rubber and made molds of them. They did nothing to them. That's where they fell down hard on this project. They didn't sand them. They didn't clean up the layer lines. There are on this upper surface up here, I'm going to show you a picture right now. On this upper surface here, there's a very slight angle to it. So the layers, you can see them stacking up on top of each other. They look like shingles on a roof. There's layers that are not filled completely. There's holes that should have been filled. There's layers all on the sides. This looks like a piece of wood. It has grain to it. The 3D model that they started with, to start with, was probably designed very small. It was probably designed for, like, you know, 1200th scale or maybe 600th scale or something. It was probably a very small model. And what they did is they took the, I was getting kind of technical here, but what they did is they probably took the STL file and just blew it up. So what happens in a 3D model is that all of the surfaces are made of small triangles or polygons. And when you blow up these polygons, they get very big. And you'll be able to see on the photo I'm going to post here, you can actually see the big giant triangles here. So this whole surface here, which should be a very complex curve, it should be made up of thousands and thousands of little polygons. It's made up with literally about a dozen. So you can actually see angles between all of the different plates on here. That's just design work that was done on CAD that is subpar. I don't have a big problem with that because I'm going to smooth that out. But what I do have a big problem with is that on these parts, this one here, I'll post a picture up of this, you can just see the what I call the spaghetti from the spaghetti shooter. Just the plastic wires going back and forth on these parts. Fortunately, most of it's on the bottom side, but it's all got to be cleaned up. So they just took these parts, like I said, literally out of the 3D printer, clipped off any supports that were there, and then did nothing. And then just put it in rubber and made molds of it. So this is what you have to be careful with 3D printing. It's easy, it's fast, it's super cheap, but what you get out of the machine, that's just step one. These parts here should have went to a model maker and been finished. They should have been sanded. This part here needs a sweep of Bondo on both sides and sanded down to get the right shape. This top here with, like I said, the stair stepping is very pronounced and really ugly. That should have all been sanded down smooth and filled. All of these parts, they all need the same treatment. This one here has some really horrible areas around here that were not dealt with. The front of this, whatever this bulbous thing here is, should be round, I'm sure, but it's actually faceted, like almost like a diamond or a gemstone or something. And that's just the laziness on the model maker, or there probably wasn't a model maker involved. There was just a mold maker. He just took the part and popped it in rubber. So all of these parts need a lot of work. This one, and this one actually look like they took a little bit of sandpaper and started to try to take the layer lines down a little bit, but they didn't get very far and gave up. So like I said, I'm not going to say where this came from because, like I said, this is my only experience with this company. I know they make a lot of other products, and those products may be amazing. So I don't want to slam the company. I want to use this kind of as a learning moment to show you guys, especially if you're thinking about getting into any kind of production, if you're getting into the business at all. You need to, if you're going to use 3D printing, it's an amazing tool. I use it all the time. I use very high resolution 3D printers to avoid a lot of the issues we're talking about here. But even if you use one of these plastic spaghetti shooters, just know that when the part comes off the machine, you've just finished step one. There's a lot of steps after that. And if you just skip all those steps, you're really going to produce a piece of crap every time. Because the rubber molds that we use to make these resin castings, it picks up every single little detail. You can, if you have a fingerprint on a model, it's going to pick that up in the mold and reproduce it every single time. So you really want your model to be as perfect as you can get it, or as nearly perfect as you can get it, before you make a mold. This model here, I would say, If these parts were given to me as masters and somebody said make me a mold of these, I would say there's probably 20 or 30 hours of work to do on these parts before they go into the rubber. And obviously the company that made this just completely skipped that step. It's unfortunate. I really had high hopes for this model. The one I saw at Adepticon was very nice looking. The guy must have put a lot of work into it to make it that nice looking. But like I said, I was really excited to get this, and I really wanted it to be a nice model, and I wanted to come on here and just glow about it and say, you guys should buy this thing. It's the coolest thing ever. Everybody needs a U-boat for whatever reason. I'm not sure even yet, but no, I'm really disappointed in it. I'm going to finish it. I'm going to make it nice, and it's going to be a beautiful model, I think. But it's going to take a lot of work, and the work that I'm going to put into this could have been done once at the factory on the master, and then every single person that built it after that wouldn't have to do the same thing again and again and again. Unfortunately, that wasn't done, and so now I'm going to be doing that. But I do look forward to building it. Like I said, I think it's going to be a really nice piece when it's completely done. And as you can see here, it's starting to play. It's a big, impressive piece. What I'm going to do is, let's see, this guy, he goes there, yeah. What I want to do with this is I want to build a board where this is at a dock. The scenario is going to be that a German U-boat was out at sea, had some serious mechanical problems, docked somewhere, barely made it back, and it docked somewhere in unfriendly territory, and there's going to be probably German paratroopers and maybe SS troops guarding it. And then the Americans are going to come in, or maybe the British, whatever, are going to come in and try to capture it. So that's going to be the scenario. So I want to do a really cool dock with the water and everything. But that was my idea behind this whole thing. So, like I said, I had no intention of talking down this company or beating them up over this. I'm not even mentioning who they are. I just want this to kind of be a lesson to the people that are thinking about getting into 3D printing, maybe thinking about getting into resin casting. Just know that 3D printing is, like I said, it's an awesome tool. I use it from time to time. I don't use it for everything, but I use it when it's appropriate. But like I said, it's just one more tool in your toolbox. It's not the end all. You can't just press a button, walk away, and when you're done, you've got a finished part that's ready for production. There's still model making to be done. And if all you can afford when you go to buy a 3D printer is one of the lesser cost FDM machines, a spaghetti shooter, that's fine. As long as you, like I said, realize that there's work to do after the part comes off. I used to have one of the FDM home consumer model printers. I think it was probably $500 or $600 at the time. They've come down in price since then. But I used to have one, and I used it to make masters. This here is a 6mm or 2/85 scale fuel tank. I've made lots of these models and shipped them out. This was done on a 3D printer, on a spaghetti shooter. This is a dome for a mosque. Same thing. If I had a lathe, I could have easily done this, but I didn't have access to a lathe at the time, so I 3D printed it. But when both of these models came out of the printer, they had the layer lines on them, and they were very pronounced. So both of these got covered in putty, they got sanded down, they got sprayed with thick build primer, sanded down again, sprayed with more primer, sanded down again, and finally getting down to 320, 400, 600 grit sandpaper, wet sanding, and finally got this finish that is perfectly smooth. And then I made a mold of that master, made a resin casting from that mold, and then further finished that resin casting with 600 grit sandpaper, wet sanding, to get this down to, you know, perfectly smooth. This smoothness here is what we should be seeing here. It's doable. I did it here. This is living proof that this was done on this, probably the exact same kind of machine this was done on. So if you see these side by side, one is, you know, perfectly smooth, the other is, well, not. So this shows what needs to be done to a 3D printed part before you make a mold of it. This also shows what needs to be done to a 3D printed part before you make a mold of it. This shows doing nothing. So if you're looking to get into 3D printing, like I said, just know that don't expect too much. You can expect to make highly complex parts with all this geometry all in one part, and once you know how to do the design on the computer, it's so easy. But then just know that that's step one. Like I said, I'll just keep saying it. Printing the part is step one, and there's 4, 5, 6, 7 steps after that that you really just can't skip. So one thing I forgot to mention here, I'm coming back to this right now because I forgot. When I talk about 3D printing, the FDM printers, the plastic spaghetti shooters, are the lowest resolution of all types of 3D printing. Higher resolution printers like stereolithography and things like that cost a lot more money, so they're not particularly well suited for the hobbyist. If you have something that you want to print and you don't want to put a lot of work into it afterwards, you can use service providers like Shapeways. You can send your file to Shapeways. They'll print it on a high resolution printer, and instead of it costing you $2 or $3 on an FDM machine, it might cost like 40 or 50 bucks from them, but it's really, really worth it. So that's just another option that exists for anyone that wants to do 3D design work and then have it printed and then make a mold of it and begin producing them. Even models from places like Shapeways still are going to require a little bit of cleanup and primering and sanding and things like that, but not nearly as much as an FDM printer is. So that's just a little tip for you there too. So I think that's it for tonight. I've babbled on long enough about this. I didn't have any kind of script or anything here tonight. I just kind of jumped around. So if I've forgotten something, or if you have a question that I didn't cover as far as 3D printing, mold making, resin casting, things like that, please feel free to put it down in the comments, and I will see it there and I will answer you to the best of my ability. I've been doing 3D printing for a long time. I've been doing resin casting for a long time. I certainly don't know everything about everything, but I know a little bit about this, so please feel free to ask. I'll always share. I'm not one of those people that thinks I know all the secrets and I'm not telling you. I'm more than happy to share. We all enjoy the same hobby together, so like I said, if you have any questions about this kind of stuff, please feel free to direct them at me. So I think that's it for tonight. I will get to work on this pretty soon. Like I said, it's going to take a long time, but I'll be happy to get it done. So that's it for tonight. Keep on gaming.